This video is about how I went about setting up my escape room situation with my grade 10 Canadian history class. So, the first thing that I did was I went and decided to talk to my teacher librarian in part because I just really couldn't wrap my brain around how to go about setting up an escape box or an room scenario. And so I just kind of wanted to talk to her and see if she had any ideas or suggestions because she kind of knows my personality and can offer some really valuable insight into what I could potentially do. And so we just kind of bounced some ideas back and forth, and she showed me some examples that she had done, that had worked for her that I might want to adapt and use for myself. And so the one that I liked the best was basically putting it into a chart because I'm a very linear thinker, and so I need to kind of see things laid out. And as my students can attest, I'm very much a chart person, so this worked the best for me. So I just started to put it into a chart. Now, most escape rooms or escape boxes tend to be either you start with 3 or 4 groups and then you come into one whole class activity in the second task, or they're just like whole class activities. I have 29 students in my class currently, so I knew that I needed to make multiple groups working towards one end goal so that nobody was kind of sitting idly by, that they needed to work as a group of, let's say, 5 kids, to be effective in solving the mystery or helping the time traveler in my case. So what I did was I created 6 different color groups. So you can see there on the screen from blue to orange. And then I just started by transcribing my trivia questions. So what I had done before I even went to go talk to the teacher librarian is I started kind of going through my binder and just jotting down some trivia questions that I could use or that my students would potentially know the answer to. I initially started the situation to be only from Unit 1, so 1914 to 1929. And then when I kind of didn't have enough good trivia questions, I expanded it to the 1930s. Additionally, also because I wanted to have the end goal be kind of the start of World War II and the declaration of war. And it kind of worked out because my time in the library where I'm going to be doing this escape room occurs right when we're probably going to be starting the start of World War II. So it worked out kind of well. So what I decided to do is for the first clue is make them all country based. I don't know why I initially started to do that. It worked out in the end, but I think I just for organizational sakes, I have no idea. But basically, all of my questions in the first task ended up being countries, and I. Initially, they weren't all about World War One, but I manipulated it so that it became all about World War One. But they were all initially country situations, and so then I moved them all to be World War One. Thought that was a good place to start since that was our first unit. And so on the right hand side, you'll see my notes. In some cases, I didn't really have anything to write for in the notes. It was just my idea of how to transition between task 1 to task 2. So I had my first clue, and then I needed to move on to my second clue. And I would worry about the notes and how I was going to get from task 1 to task 2 later on. And that kind of came through osmosis, basically, as I was working through this. So I moved on to task 2. So task 2, I decided I wanted to be a cipher, or a codex of some sort. So what I did was I just Googled ciphers and codexes, and what came up most popular was Pigpen cipher or the Polybus cipher, and so those two seemed to work out the best for me. After I'd kind of put this together, I started to come across some more ciphers. So certainly, if you know of a cipher, by all means use them. But these were the ones that kind of came across my desk essentially. So the Pigpen cipher, as you can see there on the screen, it looks essentially like alien handwriting, and the Polybus cipher is a numeric one. And there's some applications out there, just free use on the web, that allow you to kind of translate. It's sort of like a Google Translate, but for ciphers. So you can type in your question, and it will translate it into the cipher itself. So what I did was I wrote out the cipher, the question, into the cipher application, and then just kind of screen grabbed that image, and then I wrote out what the answer should look like, and I saved it into the chart so that I could see it very easily on a glance what the answer would be. Now you'll see that I've written down the lock numbers, or the lock clue. I had actually started doing that when I first started piecing together what I wanted the clue to be, but really that should be your like last task, because I ended up changing them all as I went along. So I would worry about the lock stuff like very last. I actually started that first, and that was totally a mistake. So definitely leave that to last. So I have my translations there, so you can see the numbers. That's the numbers in the alien writing there is essentially it's exactly what you see the answer to be. So Russia would be that 2454 and so on. Okay. I also put the URLs on the right hand side of my notes there, and just what I thought that I wanted them to do as the task, and I included the link for that just so that I could easily access the URL again if I needed to. So I went through that. I did 5 tasks, I believe, and over the time they kind of changed, and some of them, some stayed from beginning to end where the questions were always there. Some I actually transformed. You will see in some of the columns, so for example, like that, the blue team's one with their answer being Bing. Later on, and I think it's task 3, the pink team, for example, will be answering that same question. But you'll see that the pink team in task 2 was doing a polybus cipher. So in task 4, they're going to be doing a pigpen cipher. So everyone gets a chance to do both ciphers. And I didn't create a totally different question. I just literally took the blue team's question and made it the pink team's question in task 4, so that made it kind of my job a little bit easier, and I didn't have to come up with any more questions. I did try to make sure that my questions were a little bit not necessarily difficult to answer, but creative where I could. So you'll see this treaty was fishy, so I knew that that might stumble them a little bit and stump them a bit, but it's achievable, right? So I tried to do that where I could. Some of them are a little bit easier than others. What are you going to do? Then I went about creating the actual clues and what I wanted them to look like. I did this all in Pages on my Mac. So much easier. I love my Pages. So if you have never used Pages, I would highly recommend it, because it transfers it into PDF. It makes it it's super easy to kind of move around your images and your text boxes. The stuff that you see on the screen here before you, so these are task card templates. So the white kind of border that you see in the middle, or the white and black border, that is one task card template that's overlaid onto a colored sheet. Both of those things I purchased from Teachers Pay Teachers, as well as the font I purchased from Teachers Pay Teachers. So all those 3 things, I mean, they're relatively inexpensive in the end. I think I got a huge package of the background for like $5, and there was tons of different colors, and then the task cards was in that package, so it was totally worth it, and I've used it so many times, so well worth, money well spent. So I just transcribed my clue that you'll see from that first task here. So you see before 1914 I was fairly large, and then I just put it into the task card to help keep myself organized. And I imagine once I execute the escape box, I put in a color code. So you'll see there's the little blue square that became a circle afterwards, but essentially that's to say, blue team, this is your card. And so when I get them all kind of set up in their groups, one group will be the blue team, and I'll know exactly who to give it. So just visually, it was a little bit easier to see, and it helped keep me organized. You'll see on the left-hand side, I have my postcards. I went and looked up some public domain images and put them into postcards, and that became kind of my brain started to link the two together. I thought, since I have that first question, that first task is a country, why don't I just make them postcards? So I actually wrote that into the notes that you saw on the previous slide there. So I made a note for myself that I was going to make postcards. So just as I went through, each task, what was I going to be doing? So the first task was a task card. The second one was going to be a postcard. And then I would put the next task on the back of the postcard so that they would do the next thing right away. And so this is what it ended up looking like. So I needed them to be able to pull out the third clue, what would be task 3. So what I had them do is they were translating into that Pigpen language, or the Polybus cipher. So I decided I was going to make the envelopes, and I'm going to put the envelopes around the library when they go to do the escape room situation. So I made them into envelopes. I just bought the envelopes at Walmart. Put the task cards on the outside of the envelope, glued them down. I did laminate the envelopes and cut where the the inside, the pocket of it is, so that it wouldn't tear as easily as they're kind of running around and rushing to get to the next clues. So that made things a little bit easier. I also, for my task 4, what I did was I went to the dollar store and I purchased some frames. And so you'll see that clue in the middle there at the bottom. They have to go and find the image that associates with it. So there'll be, kind of that little hint. You'll see the kind of the double arrow there, and that's Nellie McClung, obviously. And so they'll have to kind of find or realize, they don't necessarily know that, they'll have to realize that Nellie McClung is in a picture frame somewhere in the library. And hopefully they may have noticed it somewhere. We'll see how that kind of plays out. But and I've actually even written out her name so that they can get the correct spelling on the actual picture itself. So they can get to that point. Once they've gotten all of their clues, they'll be able to crack the code. The final task, what I decided to do is I decided to make it the newspaper of Canada declares war. And what I did was I cut it oddly. So you'll see that there's like a triangles section there. So they have to find the other 2 groups that match up their newspaper header. Now, when I am making this for use from other teachers, I made it so it's a propaganda poster because that's in the public domain. The newspaper image is not. So this would be a Victory Bonds poster, but essentially the same principle applies. So basically, it's cut in 3 different kind of oddly shaped cuts. They have to then find the other 2 groups. So now they're down to 2 groups that have clues for the combination. On the reverse side of this paper is the combination for the final box. So they can't unlock it unless they have all 3 pieces. So this particular triangle would have 1 piece of that combination that would allow them to open up that lock. Now, the final box has a hasp on it, which has 6 kind of holes that I can then put the locks into. Now you'll see a lot of places recommending buy that hasp. I will tell you, here in the Toronto area, very difficult for me to find a hasp off the shelf. Could not do it. Found it on Amazon, purchased it from Amazon, but it is next to near impossible to get it off the shelf in my local hardware stores. Could not find it. So that may be a tricky thing for people to get. So I'm going to have this hasp has 6 holes. So each person, or each group, so the blue group is responsible for 1 lock. You'll kind of see it in the background there on that brown card where it says you're almost there, the time traveler is depending on you. I knew I was going to do time traveler, so I kind of put that in that clue. But you'll see kind of the 1 there. It's what it says is blue 1. So the lock is blue in color, and it will have the number 1 on the back of it. So that means that they're unlocking blue 1 with the combination that they've now pieced together on that newspaper. So you can see there on the right hand side 2712 and then whatever the third number is, they will piece the 2 together, the 3 pieces together. That will give them their combination. They unlock blue 1 with that combination. And then another group has a purple 1, another one has a red 1. And so it just tells them which master lock to go to, and so it kind of keeps them a little bit more organized. With regards to the locks, what happened was is I knew I kind of wanted to do an escape room. I wasn't entirely certain, and it was back to school time. And at Walmart, they had these locks on for sale or readily available. And so I saw them there, and I thought, I might as well just buy them. If I don't end up doing an escape room, I can always return them. So I ended up buying the Master Lock Minis, so the two Master Lock Minis that you see there. I bought two. Of the directional ones. So you see the red and the black there. I bought the blue, black, and purple letter number combination ones. So as you can see, I only had five locks because I thought, I only need five groups. And then as things started piecing together, I realized, oh no, I need six locks. So ideally, I would have liked another directional lock. Unfortunately, because I waited so long, I did not get that last directional lock. So because it was now October, back to school, the locks were basically not there. I couldn't find another directional lock for a good price for that matter. So what I ended up doing is just buying this kind of luggage lock instead. That's a 4-letter one, and you can clear it. So that one works okay. But I would have liked to have 3 directionals. So I would recommend that you try to get 3 directionals and 3 number letter combinations. That would, if you're going to be doing a 6-box situation. So if you're going to do 6 boxes, definitely try to do 3 of the same and 3 of the same. It just makes you a little bit easier, and ideally I would have liked to have them match the color of the group, but Master Lock only had these colors available for me at the Walmart there. The 2 mini Master Locks that you see there, those are the ones that go on the hasps. So when I was talking about the blue one, so group number 1 has, let's say, the top left lock that's blue in color. So those 3 all share the same combination. And so if you got purple 1, the combination is the same for blue 1. Just like blue 2 is the same for red 2. So they're all the same, and those are not reprogrammable. Everything in the middle is reprogrammable. So that's really important, so that if you plan on sharing this or doing another activity that's totally different, you can just change the combination relatively simply. I did put all of the locks and all of the combination instructions into a Ziploc bag so that they don't get lost, but I would definitely record your combinations just in case you lose any of the paperwork that comes in these packages. I then went about, so this is kind of one of the last tasks, I went about creating the worksheet that the students are going to be filling out. So basically what I did was, and this is where that original master plan came in handy, is I just looked at the master plan and saw, okay, what's the answer? So the answer in this first task is Austria-Hungary. So I put enough spaces there for them to write out Austria-Hungary. And so I did that throughout. I wanted to have numbers, but the problem was all my clues tended to be name-based or word-based. So for task 4, what I decided to do is for task 4 for this group would be a Polybus cipher. So they would have to have written it in the Polybus, the numeric code. So I figured I'll just use that as one of the numbers. So they have to write it out anyways. So I thought I might as well just have them recorded. So I added that in there as well. So because I have the 3, there's 3 letters or numbers on the combination lock, I just picked out which letters I wanted to be. Do not do this part ahead of time. Do not assign your letters ahead of time, because the locks themselves do not have all of the letters of the alphabet. So you need to look at the lock itself to see which letters it has. So some will have, let's say, the letter A, but they won't have the letter G, for example. So you don't want to assign G if your lock doesn't have G. So I just double check to make sure that the lock has those particular letters. And then at the bottom, I would have them write out their combinations, just that it's on a piece of paper, and they know that they can try it out on the lock once they have all their clues. I then went and recorded the lock combo portion that they're getting from each of the tasks. So for some people, you'll see here at task 2, the green team, the pink team, and the purple team do not get a combination clue on that particular task. But blue team, red team, and orange team do. So this kind of just lays it out for me in case the teams get stuck or they need a hint. I just have the answer key right in front of me. And then at the end, I put down what their combination was so that they knew so that I knew what the combination was in case they get locked out or they can't access it. I can always try and see if I can get in there myself. And then on the right hand side, I just wrote down the information from the master lock so that I knew for myself like how to go about unlocking them. They're all pretty much the same, and it should be exactly like their locks on their lockers. So I don't think that would be a problem, but I figured I'd write that down as well for myself and then just for the kids. It's on their worksheets as well at the very bottom. Now the boxes themselves I bought from Dollarama. I would have liked to have six of exactly the same, and then one larger box that would have been the seventh box, the one that everyone's working towards opening. And I would have ideally have liked to find one that had a lock that I could fit these master locks on. That didn't happen. What I ended up having is four small ones that are about 5 by 7 in size, and then two kind of squarish ones as opposed to the other ones are more rectangular. So you'll see the green and the orange on the picture there. Those ones are more square, whereas purple, red, and blue and pink are all more like rectangular. The other thing is that you'll notice that they do not lock. They have kind of like a little elastic that goes over a notch, and that's what holds it in place. I could not, for the life of me, find one that had a lock on it that would have fit the master lock. The master locks were too thick, so because I couldn't fit them on, like let's say, a tiny jewelry box or something along those lines, they just wouldn't fit. So my workaround for it was going to Home Depot and finding these kind of I don't know what they'd be used for, but essentially it's got a little loop at the top of it. It's got a screw at the bottom. So I had to buy drill bits and I just drilled into the wood and then screwed these pieces into them. So each of them has two and they fit the master locks perfectly. They're not too long, they're not too bad in length, but it was a nice little workaround and it helped. Additionally, what's a bonus for it too is that not all the locks go in the same way. So that smaller luggage suitcase one is so small and it doesn't actually kind of go through it if it's facing horizontally. If those circle things are facing horizontally, it doesn't actually fit in it properly. So I had to turn it so it's more vertical, and so because it's vertically aligned, it now fits. But because it's just screwed in, I can easily turn it. So it kind of worked out well for me. So that was kind of a bonus. It does have a sharp end on the inside, so I'm hoping that nobody gets scratched on it. It's not too long, so it shouldn't be too bad. But I did have to buy a drill, and then I had to buy the little pieces that go into it. The drill bits were, I think, $6 for two, and then those little circle things were like $2.50 for 10 of them. So I had to buy two packages because I needed 12 in total, or actually I needed 14 in total because I have 6 boxes and I needed two for each of the boxes. The last box, what I decided to do was I actually put it out to the teacher Facebook page to ask them what they thought my last box should be, and it triggered that I already had an activity that I could actually put in there, and I was going to do it anyways. So this was just a perfect segue for me to just put that activity into that last box. So that activity essentially is I've created these task cards. So basically these task cards are little bios about people. So I've done British people, like international people, so like there's a Dutch person in there, I think a German person's in there, a French person. So there's international cards, there's British cards, and there's Canadian cards. So this, what you're seeing on the screen here, is the Canadian cards. So are some of the Canadian cards. So basically it tells your ethnicity, your gender, your age, and your nationality. So the pink cards would all be Canadian. And you can actually see in this previous slide here, there's the blue ones there. I believe the blue is British, if I'm not mistaken. And then I give a little bit of a background. So you'll see like Nathalie lives at home with her parents. This is what she does. So the intention is that then the student is going to write a postcard to Nathalie, and they'll just hey, how's it going? I'm curious about your life during the war, because these people all will be, let's say, 15 in 1939. Because that's what it's all leading up to, right? Is the Declaration of Canada going to war. So they're all like of that age at that particular point in time. So they'll write a little letter to a little postcard to Nathalie or David or Ethel or Thomas. And each kid will get assigned one card. So there's 30 cards. I have 29 kids, so each kid gets a different person. They'll write the person's name and they'll hand in these postcards to me. Then what's going to happen is at the end of the word, the end of the unit essentially, people will get replies. So I've created replies. So you'll see this is a reply. The one in the top left here is a reply from a character named Amanda Price. So the person that wrote to Amanda Price is going to get a reply from her. Now, not everybody survives the war, and so what will happen is not everybody will get a reply from their pen pal, quote unquote pen pals. So this is just to illustrate that, not everybody returned home from the war, and to just drive home that whole notion of empathy and, relatability to the people living in the 1930s, 1940s. And so this is what I'm going to plan on doing. So at the end of the unit, I'm going to give these replies to the students who receive them. I think there's let's say 15 to 20 replies. Like I said, there's 30 cards, 30 kids. So, about 10 or 15 kids will not be getting a replies. And their character, the assumption is that character has died in the war. And so hopefully that will work out well. They don't know that that's what's coming, but that's what they're going to get in that last at the end of the unit. In terms of the props that I used in the video, in my video, and in the storyline. So the storyline is Tammy Time Traveler. She needs her pocket watch. I'm going to put the pocket watch in that final box. The goggles, the pocket watch, and the kind of, I don't know if it's a gun or what it is, I bought from buycostumes.com under their steampunk category. They were relatively cheap. I think they were all under $10. So worth it. I think they're hilarious, and I'm totally going to be using those goggles for my Rosie the Riveter costume. So what money well spent for me. And the pocket watch is kind of cool because if you press the top of it, the front glass actually opens. So it's pretty good, manipulative. In terms of the video itself, so the video I did in the end, so the very last part of it, and I use that as a way to explain to the class what the task was and what they were going to need to do. So what I did was I took pictures of some famous prime ministers that we're going to be looking at throughout the course, and I put myself into the pictures themselves. So this is terrible photoshopping skills. Basically what I did was I took selfies of myself so this is my bedroom because I have a green wall in my bedroom. So I took pictures of myself, and then I used Pages Instant Alpha to take out the background of it, and then in the PDF I converted the color saturation to black and white, and then just cut and paste it into the actual picture in Pages. It took forever, but it looks hilarious and it cracks me up. So you'll see that's the picture, and then so the color ones are a lot easier, I will give you that, but the black and white ones just look so funny. So I did a picture with Diefenbaker, a picture with Trudeau, actually two with Trudeau, so one's the charter and one was just him with his cape and hat, and one with Pearson, and then I did one with Billy Bishop, and I'm sitting in the plane with Billy Bishop. So they were fun to do. They're literally in the video for a hot second, so I don't know if they'll even notice it, but it cracks me up every time I see it. So I think it was, time well spent, but it was just an idea I had, and I thought that would drive it home. So this is Tammy, the time traveler. She is stuck in time, and we need to get her going. So I just kind of pieced together that video. Used Camtasia to piece it together as a video editing software. You could probably do the same thing in a Movie Maker or a iMovies, but Camtasia is something that I use all the time, so it was just really easy for me to do and to separate the audio and add in sound effects and things like that. And then I just created the video, and so the escape video just outlines for the students what they need to do, and then there's kind of a pause, and then it goes into if they've gotten it, if they've beaten the time. So congratulations. If they didn't beat the time, then, sorry, she's stuck in time forever. You're out of luck, kind of idea. I do not know how long it's going to take them to do the escape. In my head, I've given them 45 minutes. I don't know if that's feasible. So I think the first time that I'm going to do it, I'm just going to kind of play it by ear, and maybe not necessarily assign a time. And then when I see how well they do, maybe I'll go and assign a time for the classes going forward. But for my first time, I don't really know if it's going to take them more than 45 minutes to do. The period in and of itself is 75 minutes in length, so I have a lot of kind of wiggle room to go with. So hopefully it won't take the whole 75 minutes. I don't think it will, but you never know. And so that's it. That's how I created my first escape room. If you have any questions, feel free to leave it in the comments below, and I'll see what I can do to help in answering those questions for you. Good luck if you're creating your first escape room. It does take a lot of time. Just do pieces here and there, and that's my best advice for you, and it will work out for you in the end. Good luck. Now that I've had a chance to execute the game, I've realized there was a few areas where I needed to improve, and I wanted to come back and reflect upon those areas that I needed to improve upon and tell you what I did and how I changed the game to fix those areas of need. So the first thing is that the students had this clue, so they would be given the initial clue with their clipboard and with their hint card, and this clue was face down. They then turned it over, and so they had the clue. So most groups pretty much right away they identified the country that they were. The problem is that they then didn't know what they needed to get, so they literally wandered the library where I was hosting this game trying to find the answer, and they didn't really understand like what should they look for. And so what ended up happening is they started opening up the envelopes that were for the later clues, and then they would find, just by chance for some of them, they would actually find their color clue for 3-4 tasks down the line. They would find that color clue and think that was their next thing that they had to do, but they didn't realize that they need to find the postcard. So what I did was I actually changed up that first clue. So now the postcards have a little hint at the bottom there that you see. So look for something that you might send to a friend if you were visiting this country. So hopefully they'll recognize that it could be the postcards. I also probably would put the postcards in a more obvious spot. They were kind of on a pillar off to the side, and the kids thought it was the decor of the library and didn't really grasp that they could take it. So I might actually put it in a more obvious spot, which would then get them taking that. Additionally, what I would do and what I didn't do is for the kids that started to open up the envelopes that they shouldn't have opened, because the clue obviously didn't have that answer on the outside. They had numbers and the pigpan language on the outside. So there should be no reason why they were opening those envelopes. What I would do in the future is actually give them a speed bump for that, because that is effectively cheating, right? So I would give them a speed bump going forward. And I hadn't done that. I didn't do that when they started cheating. That would have deterred other groups from following suit with regards to that. So once again, I would put the postcards in a more obvious spot, and I changed the little blurb at the bottom there so that it was more clear as to what they need to get. The other thing that I changed, and they haven't received this yet, but I didn't like it particularly that much when I started reflecting upon it and thinking about it. So at the end, when they opened the box, they did a really good job about that. They opened the box and saw the message and took the people that they wanted to write to. They wrote their postcards, and their postcards were fantastic. I was actually really impressed by it, and I made a joke about how I was going to give the postcards to Tammy, and Tammy would deliver them to the people in the past, because there was some commentary about how those biographies were of people in the past, and how are we writing to them? Are they not long gone by this point in time? So I made up a side story about how Tammy was going to take them to the past as she was traveling, and she would deliver them to the people. So upon thinking about that, I realized I didn't like the way that it looked. It didn't really look like a postcard to me. So I actually changed this to look more like a postcard. And so this is what it looks like now. So I think that represents more of what a postcard would look like. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to I printed it out in cardstock, and I'm going to write their names on the actual card so they get to keep them. And then I'll just print them out the next time that I need them. So I think that's going to work a little bit better than what I initially did, which was laminate those kind of the striped cards. I didn't think that was going to work out. The other thing that I figured out is that, so I given them that, I told them that they had 50 minutes to complete the escape room. about 3 or 4 groups completed it in about 30 minutes. 2 or 3 groups, I can't remember offhand now, but 2 or 3 groups did not manage to complete it in the 30-minute kind of time frame that the rest of the class was doing. Some of them got stuck on trying to find the postcards or trying to locate or translate some of the coded messages. They just weren't working effectively as a team, I guess. So I had the other teams come and help them. That was bad or good depending on which group it was. So in one group they were given actually the wrong answer. So instead of trying to solve it themselves, they just copied somebody else's answer and it was actually wrong. So that kind of stuck them a little bit because they didn't have the right combination in the end. In the end, because the other groups came and helped them, the whole class was finished at about the 40-minute mark or so. They then went over to the large box and they took turns unlocking the larger box. And then I would say they had about 5 minutes to spare, maybe a little bit more than 5 minutes. So it was actually pretty well timed to be the 50 minutes. You could give them arguably a time frame of 40 minutes because I think they could solve it between 30 to 40 minutes all told. But all in all, those were the 2 big kind of things that I changed in the progress or in the process. There was just one little typo that I fixed that one of the kids picked up on, but aside from that, I think it went pretty well and went without a hitch. So hopefully the next time I play this game with them, it won't have these errors and it will run a little bit more smoothly. All right, good luck with yours. Hi again. I just realized that I forgot to tell you one more thing that went right with regards to the escape room that I'm glad I did. So I wanted to fill you in on that. So sorry for coming back and just not ending the video just yet. But one of the things that I did was I had inadvertently color coordinated each of the tasks. Initially, when I put it together, I kind of color coordinated just because it looked pretty, but in the end, that really paid off. So what had happened is when the game was over, I surveyed the library, and the library was just a disaster. The task cards were everywhere. The boxes were now all open. It was just like a living nightmare in front of me, and I thought for sure it was going to take me a solid hour to piece that stuff together. And so what ended up happening was I gathered up all the stuff, so it was all on one desk, and I started kind of going through it, and I realized that because they were all color coordinated, so they had that special background for each of the tasks. Because it had that special background, immediately I could put them into a pile. So all the pink stripes went into one pile, all of the green polka dots went into another pile. And so that separated them right away. And then I only had 6 as opposed to 36 task cards. So I immediately was able to put them into, I knew that was task 1, for example. So that helped me in establishing what went where. Then additionally, I had them labeled with a little block color. So it would say, blue color, pink color, or whatever the case might be is at the bottom. Because of those little circles or those little squares, the kids were able to tell what that the card belonged to them. But now I knew exactly where it needed to go because I had my master plan. So I could easily put it into the envelope if I needed to. The master plan had the answer key, so I knew exactly like that card went into that envelope, and it was just super easy, and I think I organized everything within 5 minutes. So it really paid off to have everything color coordinated and to identify the cards as belonging to whichever groups. So that really worked out in the end, and so I would definitely recommend that you do that so that your cleanup is not that hard, especially if you have as many groups as I did, because it could have been a real disaster. So I think that's it. So hopefully I won't have to come back with another thought. All right, thanks.